Sorry I'm late. My internet was working, and then it wasn't.
That's unusual.
I mean, I changed something that probably had something to do with it. I have two wireless routers, right? Like I have like one I use all the time, and now I'm here in my new house. And oh, by the way, I bought a house. If you didn't know.
Congratulations! Nice.
Yeah. Surprise. So I'm here in the new place, and I kind of overlapped my internet services because I have a couple weeks to move. I did like all the big stuff, and now I'm doing the little stuff over time. So it's just whatever. That's how I chose to do it. And so I got what I consider my like backup wireless router here at the house. And set up the internet, and Spectrum came and blah, blah, blah. And it was working, but like, it was like very obviously not consistent. Like it would drop, or like my phone would be like, I don't know what's going on. Or I don't know. It just felt like spotty, and not in a long distance, like it's too far kind of way, because I was like in the office that the wireless router is in, and it was still spotty. So I was like, okay, well, I'm here now. Like I've moved my big stuff now. So my bed is here, and like the majority of my stuff is now here at the house. So I said, why don't I swap the wireless routers? So I went and got what I consider the primary wireless router from my apartment, brought it here, hooked it up, and internet just would not work. Just I could see the wireless network. I could connect to the wireless router via, the IP address, but it was like the connection between the router and the modem just like did not happen. Switched Ethernet cables, nothing. Like it just did not want to go. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's some kind of IP address issue. But my good, quote unquote, good wireless router that has like wider range, stronger signal and all that, just did not want to supply internet. And for the longest time I was like, it's not, it can't, like it's the good one. It can't be the thing that's broken. But finally I flipped it back, and here I am. I'm connected now. So I'm on my backup wireless router, and that is what's keeping me afloat right now.
Did you try restarting the modem in between routers?
No, I didn't. And I see what you're saying there, because the modem, assigning it a DHCP IP address, blah, 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 negotiating with the router.
MAC address is what I'm thinking.
MAC address, yeah, approving a MAC address for a router. No, I didn't. But we had a 4:00 start time, and it's now 4:31. So I was like, you know what? I'll deal with this later. It's working on the one router. I'll deal with this later.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you suddenly disappear, I will know why.
Yeah, and I should be back. It usually only lasts like 10 seconds, but yeah. So hi, here. Let's do this thing.
Welcome back to Pride and Accomplishment. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jason. This is episode 109. Do I sound different, Chris?
Not too different from what I can hear right now, but we'll see on the recording.
That's good. I may take a picture and post in our Discord, if you want, discord.pnapodcast.com, because the setup I have right now is ridiculous.
Really?
So I finally have more space, right? I'm in a house now. I've got like an extra room that I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Okay.
So for now, I have like a really tiny desk. I mean, honestly, it's like 3 feet, maybe 4 feet wide by like 1.5 feet long. And the previous owners, I said, hey, when you're moving out, you can leave whatever furniture you want, right? Like you don't have to get it all. You don't have to. They were like downsizing and whatnot. So I was just like, leave whatever you want. Like if I'll take care of it, right? I'll keep the stuff I want to keep. And so I'm in a room that I think was a kid's room or something. And they left a queen size bed. So I'm in this totally separate room from like everything else. So it's, there's nothing in it. So there's this desk. I have my MacBook, a tiny little like weighted like desk stand. Like it's like a boom arm, but it's like super tiny, and it's weighted on the table. I don't know where I had it. It was in one of the boxes I packed, I guess. I don't know. But I've taken the mattress, and like in an attempt to as much as possible dampen the sound in this room, I have put the mattress up against the wall.
Oh,
so
okay.
It doesn't bounce as bad.
Leaning on its edge, like, so it's a big, like, if you ran into it, you'd run into the mattress, like.
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to cover as much of the wall with the mattress as I can.
Okay.
To just try to dampen the sound as much as I can in front of me. So it's like up against the wall in front of me, and then in front of that is the desk, and then I'm here.
Okay, so it goes wall, mattress, desk, Jason.
Yes, with a computer in there somewhere.
Well, okay, desk and computer are the same layer of this sandwich.
It's such a ridiculous setup. I got it done in like 10 minutes. It probably, theoretically, it should sound better than where I was, because where I was in this like upper loft area with a bunch of hard surfaces, and this room's smaller and maybe a little echoey, but like the mattress, I think, is doing a lot of work right now.
Man, you're going to really make me step up my game, because I am in a rectangular room. I've got a bunch of books on a bookshelf behind me, so I think that really helps. But like, I've always wanted to put a little bit of acoustic foam on the wall in front of me, because it's just a, flat wall, and also a bunch of monitors that kind of direct everything back at me. So I'm wondering if I'm going to have to step up my game if we're doing this.
Good acoustic foam is expensive.
Really?
Yes. Like bad, like Amazon acoustic foam, fine, whatever. It's like $1 a square or something. But like good acoustic foam is like $20 a square foot.
Wow, that's really expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently, I mean, I'm sure it does wonders. I've seen a couple videos online where people like build like they'll take like 2x4s and they'll make like boxes, and then you like stretch like a thin fabric over the top of it, and then you put like foam or something inside of it, and you can hang that on your wall. And it's thicker, right? It's much thicker than like just a foam pad, but apparently that's super effective too, and it's much cheaper if you just build it yourself. So I'm thinking about it. I don't know. This is an idea.
The real win there would be if you could custom print the thin fabric, so you could make it like art, but it was acoustically transparent art that went to the foam behind it.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
I mean, I have no idea how you would accomplish that, but that would be pretty neat.
What would be... Oh, God, now you got me thinking. Because, I don't have a very big one, but I do have a 3D printer. Can you imagine, like, 3D printing, like, shapes and stuff to put on your wall, but, like, then wrapping them in, like, fabric and then putting foam behind them and somehow turning them into a, like, The thing with sound dampening is that you really just want to cover as much surface material as you can. But, like, doing shapes, 3D printing with it sounds cool, too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that would work with the 3D printing, because the plastic would be it would be too hard, Yeah,
I don't know if it'd be any worse than wood.
That's true. And also, usually you're trying to make surfaces so that the sound waves will bounce not directly back at you, but at some angle, so that they don't create that echo effect.
Right.
So maybe, I mean, I don't know, search for like 3D printed acoustic dampening or something like that, and see if there's some subreddit or something where people obsess over this kind of thing.
I don't know. There's just so many options now, because I can put holes in the wall.
Oh my gosh. This is that XKCD all over again. The homeownership XKCD. If I get a call from you and you have holes in your house that you don't have a house anymore, I will be very disappointed, because you've been well warned by this XKCD comic.
I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I don't have a house anymore, but some of these walls aren't necessary.
I don't think you're qualified to make that assessment. Well, I have a feeling I know that what you've been doing the last week or so, but I have a little bit of follow-up since our last episode.
Yeah, I've been busy, so you're going to have to carry this episode. What have you been up to?
Well, the last episode, we talked a little bit about the Dota 2 International 10th Anniversary event thing, right, where there was this chest and you had to win 13 games, and I was really kind of sad that I was probably not going to make it because I'm not good at the game anymore. Well, you actually alerted me to some very good news that happened this past week while I was out of town and not able to play very much. They extended that event.
Yeah, I saw this. I don't remember if it was on YouTube or Reddit or something, but I saw that. I don't know if they made a joke out of it, but Gabe extended it to another week or two or whatever, because he said it wasn't enough time to collect your favorite collectibles. I don't know. You probably actually read the announcement.
I did. Yeah, it was. I mean, they do this a lot in the patch notes where they're a little bit tongue in cheek about everything. And they were like, oh, yeah, Gabe Ben is going to fire us if we don't extend this event, blah, 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 which I'm sure is a total joke. But I was shocked that this made it into your kind of news sphere, because I know you're not reading like Dota 2 subreddit all the time.
You know what I may have seen it on, and I have to shout this out, is Tech Linked, the Linus Media Group that does like tech news, is now doing game news every Tuesday, Thursday.
Oh, okay.
They're calling it like Game Linked, and that may have been where I saw it because they joked about it. But yeah, no, it's a good, like, I don't know, 5-minute YouTube clip on like the gaming news. But yeah, no, it hit one of my radars. I guess I was surprised with how relevant that news. I never hear about Dota 2 unless you go looking for it. So I don't know. I guess this was big enough news to make some kind of mainstream something.
Well, it turned out this was a really good thing, because I managed to have one thing left when I kind of went out of town. And by the time I came back, I still had that one thing left. But I played one non-turbo regular game, which was enough to get me credit for that one, thing. And I made it, and I got it. So now I have all 13 of the treasures from the 10th anniversary event, which was a free, totally free, no money necessary, just kind of gift, I guess, that they did for the community. And it encouraged me to play a whole bunch of Dota.
Yeah, that was mission success there. Does that mean you won that game?
I did, yes. I had to win it, so I won it.
That's good.
Yes, it's very good. I was very excited that I managed to do this, because my record was not great, and it was even worse when I wasn't playing a turbo game, which turbo is, as we've mentioned many times before, where you get like faster XP and gold, so it's just a shorter game. But I put on both all pick and turbo, like regular and turbo, and I played as Warlock, and I won the game.
I say it in that way because, the last time we talked that you weren't even hitting like a 500 win ratio. By the end of it, you got all 13 prizes, which means you won at least 13 times, if not more, because turbo is half credit. Did you find that near the end your matchups were starting to get more appropriate?
I think so. Like, I think I was feeling like they were more possible. Like it wasn't just totally stomped one way or the other. I mean, sometimes it was, but typically it wasn't. And I think I got back into the swing of it a little bit. So that was good. And I'm sure that the matchmaking also honed in on my new skill level a little bit better.
Okay. All right. I'll take that as a success story.
Yeah. I mean, it was good. And, to be honest, like the game was kind of fun to play. Like this game that I played a bajillion hours of, it's still kind of fun.
This game that you have like 4,000 hours in, it turns out to be fun.
Yeah, right. I know. I only play like 6 heroes out of the 120 that there are now, but like I am, it was good, and I kind of was like, oh, I could still play this game a little bit. Maybe we'll see.
So now that you have at least 13 wins under your belt and you've completed this entire collection, are you motivated to pay that money to go to the International now?
I am not. It's still way too expensive at $860 or whatever I said it was last time. The $699 ticket plus $150 in Ticketmaster fees. Still not really my thing, but I did check it today, 2 weeks after we last recorded, and I think I could still buy the ticket if I wanted to, because it's not sold out, which is interesting.
I'm not surprised by that at all.
I mean, I'm not surprised at that price, but I am a little surprised that it's still that price and it's still not sold out.
Is that price for like general? I don't know if I asked last time. Is that just general seating? Like,
it's like floor seating. Like you don't even pick anything close to a seat. It's just like a big block on the seating chart that just says general admission or something like that.
Oh my God. I mean, I'd pay like, if it was like a VIP ticket or like, loge seating or like, that's like high end seating prices is $800, right?
Right. And it is for 3 days. I mean, it's for the three-day event, but still,
man, that's for, okay, fine.
So still not going. And I think I've made my peace with that. So, oh well.
So more follow-up. At the end of the show last week, you were going to see the Barbie movie.
Yes, I did see the Barbie movie.
What did you think? I need to know.
I thought it was great. I did think that it probably was 10 minutes longer than it needed to be, specifically the last 10 minutes. But I really did like the movie in general.
I thought it was good. I was pleasantly surprised with how much I liked it. There were some moments in it, and no spoilers, but there were some moments in it where I was just like, okay. I see what maybe you're doing here, but I'm not sure I'm still with you. But overall, it was a good movie.
I thought it all landed pretty well. It told a good message. It had a good story. It had a lot of like branding tie-ins, which I always love, where they had a lot of tie-ins to the kind of Barbie universe, I guess, which I don't really know that much about, but it turns out like almost everything in that movie is actually something that was in a Barbie doll at some point.
I loved Marge.
So all of that was just great. I highly encourage people to see it. If they haven't seen it, it's very fun. It's very light, I would say. I mean, it tries to get a little bit into it, but like it does it in a good way, and it's a good movie. So
I agree. It's not on our our agenda, our show notes, but the Gran Turismo movie came out last weekend or this weekend, right?
I think it was like 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Have you seen it? I've really wanted to see it, but I just didn't get around to it. I may still yet go see it because the trailers were very good.
I have not seen any media about it. Like I knew that it was coming, but I only from like billboards, not from trailers. So I don't know.
You should go watch a
about.
trailer. You may be intrigued.
Okay. I mean, I like the Gran Turismo games, but they're really not the most story-rich games. They're kind of like drive cars in circles.
Great. Love that. Let me throw the curveball at you, right? So the trailer shows this, so it's not really a spoiler. But they set up a tournament of the best Gran Turismo drivers, right? The
gamers?
fake drivers, right?
Okay.
The game drivers, right? They set up a tournament to find one of them to race in a real race.
Oh.
And then they train the people to be real race car drivers. And it's apparently based on a true story, which I didn't know that was a thing. And I don't want to go read the real story because I don't like to spoil the show for me, but I'm going to go watch the movie and then I want to know what the real story is. But that's what got me was like, it's the Gran Turismo game, and they talk about Gran Turismo, I'm sure, but like the premise of the story is that they take these video game drivers and they turn them into a real race car driver.
Okay. I mean, I remember them doing something like that where they were making it super serious and like bringing people and giving them the opportunity to drive real cars, but I didn't realize it was a race. I thought it was just kind of like a PR tournament, if you will, like, play the game and then come to the Richard Petty driving experience or whatever, right? And then go drive a race car for 10 minutes and then take some pictures and we'll put it on our blog. But that sounds cool. I mean, okay.
And that may be what the true story is based on. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't look it up. So maybe, who knows? But the trailers themselves made it seem very compelling and a very good story. So now we both have homework.
Is see the Gran Turismo movie?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not busy. I've got nothing else going on.
Sure. I have been playing a new game this week while I was traveling.
Starfield?
No, not Starfield, because I needed something that could play on the Steam Deck, and Starfield is not that.
No, you're right. It's not that.
So I've been playing Sea of Stars, which is a 16-bit, 32-bit, I don't know. Looks like a Super Nintendo kind of game, but it's modern and it runs on PC. And it's in the style of Chrono Trigger, I believe. I've never actually played Chrono Trigger. Sorry. But it's one of those like old school Square Enix RPGs. And you have like a party of people and they like run around in like this little pixel world. And then you have turn-based battles and an inventory to manage and health and magic points and all that fun stuff. But it's all with a little bit of a modern trapping to it. And it's been really good so far. Okay.
So our Discord sphere has been blowing up about this game.
Yes, they have. And that was where I kind of was like, oh, we'll put that on the radar.
Yeah. Why are people what's going on with this game? Like, what sets it apart? What makes it, like, I don't understand. I don't understand why people are calling it like near game of the year.
I think the real answer is that it just seems to have a lot of like care for the source material. You know, it's one of these things you would call it like a spiritual successor to, you know, Chrono Trigger or Super Mario RPG or those kinds of like mid 90s RPG games kind of thing. And it has like really good art. It has decently good music for the kind of music it is. It's kind of, you know, chiptune type music. It has good characters. It has a good story. It tells, like, it has interesting navigation and traversal. So like when you're in the overworld, I guess, like outside of battles, you can do a lot of like interacting with the world. So a lot of things are like walk up to this wall and press A to climb this ladder, and then like press A to jump off the ladder, right? And then, but it's also like, oh, you can press A to jump up this ledge that's like about as tall as your character's height, like standing height. So that's a little different in a game like this, where it's like, oh, you don't have to find exactly the perfect ladder. You can kind of navigate up and down and jump off of things and that kind of stuff. So it's a little more free in the movement than you typically would expect from a game that was like a Super Nintendo RPG game.
I'm imagining very much a like Pokemon Nintendo game. Is that like, am I imagining correctly?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, sort of. Like a good Pokemon game from the early Game Boy kind of games, yes, but with much, much better graphics. There's like sometimes when you have some really cool environmental lighting effects that are in the pixelated world, so you can tell that they're doing something where they're like rendering in 3D and then projecting it in 2D or something, like, because you can have your character can have like a glow at their feet that like projects onto the floor accurately, and it's not pixelated, like it's actually like a glow. So there's some mixing going on here, and it's actually kind of similar to what was done in Octopath Traveler, where they had a really good like art style and effect, but Octopath was even a little bit more pixely than this one is, I think. This one, the characters are kind of that double tall. I don't know if you think about like oftentimes like a Pokemon game, the character was like a square, and in this one the character is like two squares on top of each other. So they can have a little bit more detail to them. And the characters are like very visually distinct, and the characters that you meet are also pretty interesting. I just like it. And then you can also get into the combat, which is, like I said, turn-based, but it's different than your typical turn-based stuff. Before you get into that, I just have a quick question. Is it voiced over? Is it text-based? Like, where you say characters and story and whatnot are good, like is any of it voiced over? No, I don't know. I'm pretty sure none of it is voiced over, but sometimes it goes into this like little cutscene mode where it has like what looks like hand-drawn animation, but still kind of maybe pixel-ish, but like it's almost like, you know, it like zooms in on somebody's face and you get like an artistic view of it, kind of a thing, if they want to show a particular like story moment. And it's usually only like up to 5 seconds long. It's not like it's a whole cinematic. It's like, you know, your characters are like, look over there, and then it kind of, the whole screen goes to this like nicely drawn, detailed view of what's happening as they look at it, and then it comes back, and then they walk up, and then you kind of have text-based pixely conversations. But I'm pretty sure none of it is voiced. I hate to do this, but someone recently did a review of Guild Wars 2, and they said, if you love the story of Guild Wars 2 and just never felt like you could connect with the Final Fantasy story, it's probably because the entire Guild Wars 2 story is voiced over. And I was like, you hit the nail on the head. Oh my gosh. Which is so funny because I'm a reader, right? I just finished another book today. Like I like reading and I engage with characters and story in books, but I don't know, video games that aren't voiced are harder for me to connect to, almost impossible for me to connect to. But in any case, I'm glad you like it. I know there's a huge audience for it. So I understand. The thing I'll say about that particular thing is that Guild Wars, the quantity of dialogue in Guild Wars, if you didn't have it voice acted, would be way, way too much. Right? Like, I think my attention span for text-based back and forth is probably, I don't know, 4 dialogue lines each character, maybe, you know, like eight button presses in a single conversation. And then I start to get a little bit like toe tapping, like, okay, all right, when are we going to be done with this? But like that one Living World season of Guild Wars where they didn't get the chance to voice act it because of COVID or whatever it was, like they still had the same amount of like 6 minutes of dialogue stuff that they expected you to then read instead of listen to. And maybe not 6 minutes, but like 2 minutes. And it all felt very like, oh my gosh, I don't care. Like, stop. And I would say that is one thing maybe that this game, Sea of Stars, gets better, is that they kind of understand the medium and they understand what they're doing, and they're not overly wordy and expository for the most part. I think there's a little bit in the beginning that's kind of like that, but in general, they keep the conversations to a reasonable length, and that makes it so that you can actually follow what's going on and you can actually kind of put it into context. And the characters, like I said, are very well defined. Like they have very obvious personalities or whatever, so you can kind of like keep track of like who's talking, like who it's this one that's the, you know, this is the person that's the compassionate one, so it's going to be that one that's talking about that, and like you get that kind of sense in your head. And then it's like, oh, okay, well the person that's, you know, kind of sarcastic or whatever, right, they're saying their piece, and you can kind of like, you can remember those sentiments in your head, which means you can kind of attach them to the people, which is a little bit different, I feel like, than a lot of things where they're trying to do a lot of like exposition, if that makes sense at all.
I get it. I agree with you. When they did the Guild Wars thing, that was excruciating. I couldn't do it. But I'd rather them put out content than not, and that was fine. You're right. It was COVID, and they couldn't get the voice actors into the studio, which was the reason. So I get it. And they went back and added voice acting. I think they knew that they couldn't leave it in the state that it was. You say 4 back and forth, you know, 4 lines back and forth. Maybe that's my problem. Like, because I don't even think I could do 2 or 3. Right? Like I don't know. I just disconnect so fast from it. In any case, I'm glad it's good. I mean, I guess I remember the thing I really wanted to say. With that little dialogue, you say that the characters are good and the story is good, but with that, you know, they understand the medium and they're pulling back and they really only say the things that are necessary and to, you know, does that allow as much character growth? Does it allow as much nuance? Does it allow, you know, all of the tiny elements of storytelling and character development? Because that's where I feel like if you're really getting, like, there's so much that is told through voice acting, through, you know, just tone and speed and all of those elements of it that, you know, are part of directing a show or a TV show or voice acting or whatever it is that you don't get when you're reading just straight dialogue. But then certainly, even if the dialogue is limited, right, the number of things said is limited, there's even less of that. So, again, I haven't played a game with text, dialogue in a very, very long time. So I'm not a great judge of saying, you know, how it comes across. But to me, it would seem as the medium was limited in its character development and storytelling. If, you know, they're trying to keep it short, they're trying to, you know, they don't have it voice acted, so they're losing so many elements. Again, totally personal opinion coming from a pretty uneducated point of view because I haven't done it recently. Totally understand that this game, you know, everyone is basically saying that the story and the characters are great and the rest of the game is great. So I don't know. Maybe I should try it and experience it. I'm going to guess that you're going to tell me that this is not on Game Pass.
It is on Game Pass.
Oh my gosh, I should try it.
I bought it because I wanted to play it on the Steam Deck, but it is on Game Pass.
Best deal in gaming. All right, tell me about the combat, because now I'm maybe convinced.
Okay, so this is the next thing that you're going to not like about this game, or at least that you're going to think that you're not going to like about this game, because, like I said, it's turn-based combat.
Yeah, however, there's such thing as good turn-based combat.
Yes. What I'll say about it is they do this thing where the turn-based combat is in the environment, if that makes sense. So there's no like fade to black, bring up in an arena, like glamour shots of the characters waiting for the fight to start and like push these. Yeah, exactly. There's no
dun 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 dun.
Precisely. I mean, there is battle music, but it's not. You're not like waiting 7 seconds for the battle to start when you've engaged some encounter. And also, there's no like random encounters you can't see coming. Like there are, enemies in the world.
You don't have to avoid the grass because you don't want to fight Pokemon?
Correct. But you can avoid a lot of like the open world creatures if you want to. I mean, I think I take on most of the fights just because I kind of like it, but you don't have to. They have this system where it's turn-based, but you only have a limited amount of stuff you can do, which is also kind of nice in terms of you have attacks, you have skills, you have combos, and you have items, and that's it. There's no block. There's no like forward and back, like, move to the front line, move to the back line. Like you don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. But your characters have a small amount of magic points of MP, mana, if you will. I don't know. And that mana gets restored as they make normal attacks. So like it's a pretty easy decision to be like, okay, well, this character doesn't really have enough mana to do something, so I need them to just use their regular, physical attack. And then they take that attack and they get 2 or 3 mana. And it takes, 6 mana to do a spell. And you can upgrade their maximum mana pool and all that good stuff. Like it's it starts off small and then it's an RPG, so you level up your people. But then I find like there's certain things where you have different attack types. So like one character has a sword type attack, one character has like a hammer type attack, and then your 2 main characters, each one of them has sun and one of them has moon powers, and that's not a spoiler. That's in the everything. So your sun and moon powers, and so then you'll have enemies that will have what they call them locks, but they're basically sets of icons over their head and a little countdown to say like in this many turns this enemy is going to attack with some big attack, but you can break them or stop them if you meet the kind of requirements that their lock says that they're about to use. So maybe it'll say like I need 1 moon, 1 sword, and 1 sun attack or whatever, right? And so my moon person is the hammer person. My sun person is the sword person. So I do 1 moon attack from the moon person, which uses mana because it's a magic attack. And then I need to use 1 powered up sword attack or whatever from the sword guy, which will make it a sun sword attack. And then I do those things and then it breaks the lock and then that enemy loses their turn basically. So if you manage it well, you can keep the enemies from hurting you too badly because you can kind of meet them before they attack you. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but like it gives you a layer of kind of almost like a mini game to it that you can use to make your life easier.
That's interesting. I like that. I don't know. I can see how that could be fun. It gives it gives the things you choose to do and the characters and who they attack a little bit more variety, maybe, because I feel like in a lot of turn-based games, often I am just trying to focus one enemy down at a time. And that may sometimes be boring, right? Like, I don't know. It just feels like very procedural, right? Because there's, I don't know, in action-based combat, right? Like you have to dodge certain things and you may be switching targets halfway through. And like, you have to, if you're fighting 3 things at the same time, you have to like block someone that's coming up behind you or whatever, right? Like there's a little bit more variety to it. And in turn-based games, I tend to just kind of get locked into a mode where I'm, focusing one down at a time. And I think the way that you explained it, like, gives it a little bit more of that variety in that you can't just attack the same guy the whole time, which I like. I don't know. That seems cool.
Yeah, it absolutely drags you away from the, oh man, I really want to kill this thing, but that thing is going to really hurt if I don't deal with it. So you're like, oh man, this thing is the enemy A is 1 hit away from dying, but enemy B, I have enough turns that I can stop them from taking half my party's health. So I need to let enemy A live for a minute, go deal with enemy B, and then come back to enemy A, like when I'm done. So it does have that level of tension, I guess, or pulling you to do not just on rails, like kill the one, then kill the next, then kill the next.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a really nice way to do it.
They also do KOs really nicely. So like if you have a character that gets downed, they get these little stars over their head, like cartoon, like little stars when they're dead. And every turn they lose one of those stars. And when they run out of stars, then they come alive again. There's also a revival item, but like what it also means is if you can just wait it out, if your other characters can just hang on for 2-3 turns, then your third character will come to life again. And there's no penalty for that, like other than the turns they don't get to attack, but like they come back with, I don't know, half health or something like that. So
the only way you actually lose is if all of your characters go down?
Correct. And that's how it is in most RPGs. But typically, like in Final Fantasy, you have to carry a bunch of Phoenix Downs, and then you use the item Phoenix Down to revive a person. In this game, there is an item that revives people, but you don't have to have it in order to get that character back, which is good because it means that if you can just kind of endure for a little while, then your characters all will be alive again during the same battle.
That's kind of cool.
It also means that at the end of every battle, your characters just come back to life. You don't have to spend an item or a spell to bring them back, which is also just a nice quality of life thing.
So how many hours do you have in this game?
Probably like 3 or 4, maybe 5. I don't know. Yeah, maybe even more than that, but no, probably 3 or 4.
And is it a spoiler as to why it's called Sea of Stars?
I don't know. I'm not sure that I've quite figured that out yet, other than it talks a lot about like sun and moon and eclipse and solstice and all that kind of like space astronomy words.
It says it takes like 25 to 30 hours to beat. 26 to 34 hours. That's a long game. That's a sizable game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far I am. Like, I'll be interested to see, because it feels like the opening quest that I'm on, or not opening quest, but I'm technically probably 2 or 3 main quests in, but like the opening storyline that I'm on feels like the kind of thing that I would do, and then it would open up into something else, and I haven't gotten into the something else yet. So I don't know. I don't know where it goes from there, but I know that there's a lot more to it, and there's still a couple of mini games I haven't found and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. I know you want to play it on Game Pass, but I've been playing on Steam Deck, and which, I mean, you could do on Game Pass if you really wanted to, but I am playing it on the Steam Deck, and I found the Steam Deck to actually be really nice for this kind of game, because it's kind of a, lower button density, kind of older, from an older time feeling kind of game. So it doesn't have that many buttons, and that's been great to work with the Steam Deck.
Yeah, it's a Game Boy game. Of course it's good on the Steam Deck.
Well, that's the thing, right? So I have, I started out with just like regular Steam Deck controls, right? It's just like a regular controller. It's kind of like an Xbox controller on the Steam Deck, whatever. But then you have those grippy buttons on the back. You've got R4 and R5. You've got 2 grip buttons on the back. Well, L4, R, whatever. You know what I mean? Left and right, 2 buttons.
I gotcha.
What I've done is I have set up the controller scheme to be identical on both hands. So I've got both of the sticks going to the left stick input. I've got the A and B buttons are A and B, but then I've got the 2 grip triggers on the back on both sides. The top one is A, the bottom one is B. What that lets you do is, if you're playing the Steam Deck and you're like, oh, my hands are getting tired from like holding this up, you can like lean the Steam Deck on a table and hold it with a single hand, and then you can still play most of the game by working it that way. There's some things where you need to have L and R, L1 and R2, whatever, like the triggers. And that's when it gets tricky, because you're like, okay, now I have to do this. But like, I was on a plane recently, and you don't have that much space on the plane. And so I was able to like play with just my left hand, like while I had a drink in my right hand, because it's a plane. And it was really nice to be able to do that. And normally you'd have to have both hands, so that you can do A and B, but the Steam Deck is like perfect for that, with the triggers. And I'm wondering if you could do the same thing with your Xbox Elite controller.
Yeah, probably. I think there's less of a reason to if you're in like a dedicated gaming setup, but that is nice. I mean, that's something I want to do all the time, is hold the Steam Deck or hold whatever I'm doing. Like I mean, your phone, right? Always one-handed, or
sure.
Like if you're playing an iPad, you can't hold an iPad one-handed. That just doesn't work. So that I like that. That's cool. I very rarely use my Steam Deck, but I very rarely use or learn the paddle or rear buttons enough to use them. So I think that's a cool use of them.
I mean, they don't do anything else in the game otherwise, right? They don't have their own mapping otherwise. So I just was like, all right, you're A and B now.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that you mirrored them.
Right, yeah, it's the same on both sides, which is also super nice. I did get into a situation where I needed to start using the X button to do something, though, and I was like, oh no, I'm out of buttons. So I ended up having to play that segment without my clever trick for the left-hand thing, but I considered mapping like the touchpad to the X button or something.
I was going to say, you have the touchpad on both sides, or click in the stick.
Yeah, clicking the stick was another one that I considered. But all in all, it's been really nice to play on the Steam Deck. It looks good. You know, those kinds of games look really good on the Steam Deck, and they last forever on the battery. So that's also nice. I think the Steam Deck was telling me it had like 6.5 hours to play this game or something of battery life.
That's good. That's nice. So you're going to finish this one? You're going to finish it?
I'm going to try. I mean, I think I want to try to play it. I started playing on the Steam Deck. I now kind of want to try to play it on the computer and see how it is on a bigger screen and with like an actual Xbox wireless controller, see how that goes. But this is like a great Steam Deck game. It may take me a while to finish it because I may only play it if I'm traveling, but we'll see where it lands.
So you haven't been playing Starfield?
I have not touched Starfield. I have not even watched anyone play Starfield. I read like a review.
I have heard a lot of people that have just logged in, started because it's Game Pass, it's free, right? Like it's included. Have logged in, created a character, and then have not played another minute. I think I can count at least 4 people I know that have done that.
I think I've heard that from several people as well.
I have not even booted it. I don't even think it's installed.
I did like the pre-install thing 3-4 weeks ago, and it says that it downloaded 100 gigs worth of stuff onto my computer, but I'm sure it needs another patch before I could actually play it.
I have not heard anyone tell a very extremely compelling kind of you must play this game kind of story or opinion. I've heard a lot of positive opinions. I've heard probably an equal number of negative opinions. I haven't heard very many bugs. Like it's pretty stable and good and, you know, bug free and for the most part. But like I haven't heard any like extremely strong emotions on either side.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people that said, I don't think this game is for me. And then I've heard maybe half as many of those people saying, man, this game is going to keep me busy for the next 5 years. And then there's also the reviews that are like, yeah, once you get through the first 40 hours, it gets really good.
Okay, I haven't heard 40 hours, but I have heard the first 10 hours are actually not good.
Yeah, maybe it was 20 was what I heard, but it was definitely more than 10 that somebody had said, like, it's a really good game, but it takes a long time to get into it.
That's an MMO. It's an MMO. Like, I don't understand. If I wanted to play another MMO, then I had to put 400 hours into it before it got good. I'd go play Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm worried about it. I want to play it, but I don't think I have time to sit and get through it in the beginning before it gets fun. And it's a single player game.
The other thing that I've heard, and I've seen this, and maybe I'm just not in the right sphere, but I think I've noticed this, is that like it doesn't seem to be an extremely like shareable experience. Whereas the whole, like, anytime anyone's playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, or anytime anyone was playing Baldur's Gate, it felt like a very shareable experience, right? Like people were like, oh, how did you experience this? Or what did you do here? Or in Zelda, it was, you know, oh, where did you find this? Or like, look, you know, how did you do this thing? Or so far, at least, Starfield has not really shown that to be like, and I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago, where like this procedural generated planets and the way the story works and all of that, like, just doesn't lead to a very shareable experience. And that may be true of all Bethesda games, because the thing that seems to make the rounds on social media about Bethesda games are the mods. and not the game itself. And I don't know. It just seems to be a really weird kind of like atmosphere around the game right now.
I remember we said that maybe it could be okay if you had the story beats that were like common to everybody, and then you had your own procedurally generated like exploration-y parts. But I think maybe the on rails or the scripted parts are too few and far between once you get past the first like tutorial, maybe, to make it so that you can talk about it with people.
Yeah. The one positive thing that I'm hearing from just about everyone that has put at least enough time into it is that it is a remarkably good shooter, like straight up. And the thing behind it, I think, you know, people are saying, oh, well, Skyrim had magic and Fallout had, I don't know what Fallout had.
Fallout had the VAT system, which was like their like pause time and precision
that's
shot
right.
stuff.
Yeah. So like this, like at its core, what is its like core like gameplay loop? And people are saying like the combat, the shooting element, like the, you know, if you play in first person or third person or whatever, like the actual straight up like shooting combat feels really good. And someone on a podcast I was listening to, the Friends per Second podcast, which I really like, is another video game podcast. Listen to ours first, then go listen to theirs. They had someone on and they straight up it like just said on the show, they're like, it's not Destiny quality gunplay, but it's pretty close. And I was like, well, that is actually a really, really good compliment.
One of the people I read, I don't think it was a reviewer, like a formal reviewer. I think it was just a person. I mean, reviewers are people too, but like it was just like whatever, civilian, I guess. They said that they thought it was too much gunplay. Like it was more shooting and more kind of combat focused than they were looking for in their space RPG, which to me kind of turned it off a little bit. I was like, it's okay. That leans it in the like less interesting for me camp, but I'll probably still try it at some point, but who knows when. Yeah.
And it may, for me, it may be a point in my, you know, in the favor for me, you know, cause there was, you know, I heard some comparisons to like Cyberpunk and, you know, other RPGs, and they were like, there isn't really a stealth option here. There really isn't a hack option here. There are, when you're presented with a problem, you're expected to go in guns blazing. Like that is the expected like solution to the problem. And there really isn't an alternative, or at least not a very extremely viable run. And, you know, if like going in with that expectation makes me feel better about it. Like, oh man, I don't have to like think about, should I be stealthing this? Should I, you know, are there secrets on ways that I could be like, you know, hacking it and like doing, like making this an entirely different, like, I don't have to think about those expectations, because when I'm playing a game, sometimes that comes up, like, because I'm just like, I always just go in guns blazing. And, you know, sometimes games are designed where you shouldn't do that, or it's more fun, or it's a different experience if you don't do that. And knowing that going into this, where like the expectation is that you go in guns blazing and it is a combat game, is actually almost a relief in some aspect to me. So I don't know. I haven't played it. I haven't experienced it for myself. This is just what I've heard and what I'm thinking about it. But I wouldn't say it's a negative for me.
Well, I guess that's the P&A review of Starfield, having not played it. So
yeah. So with that, like, do you have a plan on when you're gonna, like, are you gonna finish Sea of Stars and then do Starfield? Like, what's your plan here?
Oh my gosh, I honestly think that Starfield might be a 2024 game for me.
I was thinking the same thing,
because coming up in October, starting in October, there are so many games coming, like so many games.
I'm already behind. I mean, God of War, right? I still want to play Immortals Phoenix Rising, or Phoenix Immortals Rising, whichever one it is. I never get it right.
You had it right the first time.
Armored Core 6 came out.
Oh, yeah.
What's the other game that came out this year that I was excited for?
Final Fantasy 16.
Thank you. Final Fantasy 16. I'm already losing track. And Starfield, like it just doesn't even like if I were to put those games that I already have on my list in order, Starfield is not at the top.
Sure. And Starfield is going to be there. Like it's going to be around forever. So you can just wait until
I'll be able to play it on my microwave in a couple of years.
Exactly. So like you can really wait for the Game of the Year edition or whatever, and then do that. Like wait for all the DLC to come with it or whatever, like, and let them refine some of the systems and whatnot and fix the bugs.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess what I'm asking the listeners here maybe is there an extremely compelling reason? I guess I haven't heard it yet. Is there extremely compelling reason to play Starfield? And, you know, second to that, is there an extremely compelling reason to play Starfield now? Because, you know, I typically like to be part of the hype, right? Even if I don't end up playing a game, I was involved with the hype on Final Fantasy 16. I like to, you know, read about it and, you know, be kind of a part of that. And you know, I played the demo and you know, that was fun. And, you know, with I mean, another big one, like the Guild Wars 2 expansion, right? I loved being part of the hype and when it came out, and that's just part of the experience. But like with Starfield, I just don't feel like there's that same like level of hype. I just don't feel it. I don't feel like there's a buzz going on like around right now, and that just it makes it less compelling for me to play it right now. So if there is a reason, or you think that I'm missing something, or you think, you know, Chris and I need are not considering something about this game, please like let us know, because I'd be interested to hear if anyone has like an extremely compelling reason, or has an extremely strong opinion one way or another, or an extremely like compelling story or experience to tell about the game, because so far I have not heard any of it. Or Sea of Stars, right? If you think, you know, I personally am interested in maybe trying Sea of Stars. I know a lot of our listeners actually are playing Sea of Stars. So, you know, I don't know. You know what to do. Discord.pnapodcast.com.
If you want to find our older episodes or read our show notes, you can visit our website at pnapodcast.com. That's P, the letter N, the letter A, podcast.com.
If you're enjoying the show, we'd love if you could share it with some others that might enjoy it as well.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. Jason, I alluded to having gone on a trip this past week, and I am out of practice with flying domestically.
Does that mean you're out of practice flying economy?
Perhaps. that may be what's happening here, because
that's what's happening here?
Yeah, my last couple of flights have been international business class flights, and I did fly economy this past weekend, and it's just been a while since I have traveled alone in economy, I should say.
I want to be perfectly upfront. Me too.
Yeah. So I did this, and I had the window seat, and I was sitting there, and I had my Steam Deck, and I was playing on the Steam Deck, and the person next to me, he had a 16-inch MacBook Pro on his lap, not the tray table, fortunately, but on his lap the entire flight, reading some documents or something. And that is a very wide computer, and it's really too big for an airplane in most cases.
Yeah, agreed. That's a chunk. I mean, it's a beautiful machine, but it's a chunky machine.
It's just wide. It's just very wide compared to, I mean, it basically took up the width of the like seat, like his area.
I was going to say,
like,
the seat's only like 18 inches wide, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a 16-inch MacBook Pro is 15 inches wide or 14 inches wide. It's 16 inches on the diagonal.
No, but like the seat itself is like 20 inches wide. Like the seats are not much bigger than that.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So it was an experience because, you know, I was in the window, he was in the middle, like, and I just felt like the entire time that I was getting very encroached upon in the kind of elbow area.
Well, okay. So he's in the middle seat. He gets like primary control over that armrest, as far as I understand it.
I don't know that I agree with that as far as absolutely as I think that you do. We were having this conversation because, anyway, they had free Wi-Fi on the plane, which was great, but it allowed me to message Jason about this in real time, which might have been a mistake. But he sent me back a drawing to describe his understanding of the middle seat's armrest control diagram. And I know what you said was that the middle seat person has the armrest all the way to what would be the exterior edge of the armrest for them. But that doesn't make sense that the middle seat person gets a wider assigned seat because they're in the middle seat.
Absolutely.
Because that would imply that they have it on both sides, which means that their seat is effectively 2 inches wider on either side.
I stand by it. They absolutely have control because you've got all the space between your armrest and the window.
And what does the middle person have? The aisle person.
The aisle person has as far as they want to go out into the aisle as they can, as long as the drink tray isn't there. As long as the drink cart isn't in the aisle.
I mean, okay. I disagree on that generally, but I understand what you're saying. Yes, they can get away with it, but
my elbow and arm are probably 1.5 inches into the aisle.
Okay, well.
Right, because you're putting your forearm on the armrest and you're kind of leaning into the aisle a little bit. So the top, I'm doing it in my chair as I'm saying it. Your shoulder, the top of your shoulder, your upper arm, your elbow are in the aisle. You spill out into the aisle. You have that's your wiggle room, right? Is into the aisle. The window guy is doing the same thing on the window side, and typically there's I don't know, 1 inch or 2 of space on that side because the plane is a circle and the square seat is a square. You have some room to kind of wiggle out into the window area. The middle seat guy's got the only space he has is the space in between those armrests, which is why he gets the aerospace. He gets control of the airspace above the exterior line of the both armrests on either side.
Okay, so if that's the case, that means, though, that then there needs to be a hard wall at the edge of that invisible wall that is the exterior edge of the armrest. And I think that's very difficult to monitor and appreciate if you are taking the perspective that you have, that you own the entire top of the armrest. Because you'd be I'm just leaning my arm on the horizontal top of the thing, not realizing that the bone of my arm sitting there means that the skin of my arm is hanging over the edge.
I would argue that if they are over the edge of that armrest, that they are technically in violation of the the rules of society. However, how uptight you want to get about that, we could talk about. But yes, if their elbow, and this is why I say they get control of the whole armrest. If they're doing the same thing the guy on the aisle is doing to the seat to their left, right? If their elbow is in your airspace, which is why I drew that vertical line in the diagram, right? If their elbow is hanging over the edge of that middle of the armrest, that I would consider, not. Again, they have the middle seat. I'm not would I care? Probably not. But technically, are they in your space? I would say yes.
Yeah, I feel like if I'm in the middle seat, I'm putting my arm on the inside edge of the armrest, leaning against what is the closest to me corner of the armrest, which then means that the spillover from my arm is over what is my airspace of the armrest, right? The top side of the armrest. But I'm not encroaching. I'm definitely not encroaching onto the person next to me if I'm in the middle.
Yeah. And I would say that's generally what I would try to do as well, right? You're a smaller guy than me. So it may be a little easier for you, but that's generally what I would try to do is you put your elbows on almost on the inner corner of the armrest.
Exactly. The top corner, the closest to you.
Yeah. So the spillover is onto the top of it instead of over the edge of it.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. That's generally what I would consider the polite thing to do.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that we've got that resolved because based on our text conversation, I wasn't convinced that you would agree with me on that.
No, I mean, if he crosses that plane of the airspace, in any way, right? You have a right to the inner. Sorry, if you're on the window seat, right? You have the right to the inner side of the middle armrest.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
If he's crossing over that that plane, that vertical plane, I would. That's technically, in my opinion, a little impolite.
Good. Well, I'm glad that we resolved that difference there.
So, okay, but like, here's the other thing, though, right? Like, you're on the inner seat, in like by the window. Like, do you feel mortified if you have to ask that guy, "Hey, I gotta go to the restroom"?
Yes, I very strategically manage my liquid intake before and during the flight so that I do not need to be that guy. In all cases, except for the longest of long hauls. Like, I was on a 5-hour flight or so, and I managed to not need to get up from my seat.
Yeah. I care less, but
I mean, I was the aisle person on my other flight, the round trip, the other flight. I was the aisle person, and my aisle mates, my seat mates, I guess, had me get up and move twice. So that and then when one of them went, both of them went. So I was like awkwardly standing in the aisle for like 5 minutes.
Sit back down.
Well, in this case, the thing was close, and I would we were directly across. This is a whole nother story about airplane design, but we were directly across from the mid-cabin bathroom. And so I knew anyway, it would be very obvious and then it would be an awkward dance because then the other person was still standing out. It was better for me to just stand in the aisle than it would have been for me to sit back down and get back up and sit back down and get back up.
You should have just taken a walk.
That might have been a better option, but really what it was is I was watching a movie on the in-flight entertainment, and I have the what's it called? AirFly, I think it is. It's a Bluetooth retransmitter thing that has a headphone thing on it, and you stick it in the headphone thing on the airplane, and then you can hook your AirPods up to it. So while I'm standing in the aisle, I can look down at the seat, the TV on the seat in front of me that I'm watching, and still hear my movie and watch my movie. So it turned out to be okay. But yeah, I generally, if I'm the window person, try not to need to get up as much as I can.